As we begin this series on systematic theology, we're looking at our understanding of God, theology, the study of God. We will break this down into very specific components and aspects of theology, but to begin with, we're going to look at a more broader understanding of theology and belief and understanding of God. So to begin with, we'll look at various views of God. There are, of course, many different views of God. And as I give these categories, there are also many subcategories underneath these. But in broad general terms, we have polytheism, an understanding that there are many gods. That there are, if we believe in one God, then that God is just one among many different gods. And this goes to many different tribal religions, Hinduism, many different polytheistic understandings. So the understandings of the number of gods can be in the thousands of different gods. So if we have a belief in one God, then that God is one of perhaps thousands of different gods. Polytheism. I also have idealism. Now, idealism, probably the best way to describe idealism is to look at how it played out in the Neoplatonists, authors like Plotinus and Proclus, and looking at their understanding of the physical realm and the spiritual realm. So the Neoplatonists had this understanding that there's a spiritual realm that was perfect, complete, whole, kind of a utopia in a sense. And then the physical realm emanated out from that spiritual realm. And that physical realm emanated out so far that it became corrupted and evil. And so the whole goal is then to return back to that spiritual realm. So it's this idea of emanation and return are the wording that we see in and among the Neoplatonists. So the idea of that is the physical world is so evil and corrupt. In order to return back to the spiritual realm, there are many different paths based on different branches of this understanding of idealism. So some, like the Gnostics, believe that return back to the spiritual realm would be Gnosticism, through knowing and knowledge. So they would seek knowledge and understanding of that spiritual realm as a way of returning back. Now, sometimes the way that played out was it was so distinct from the spiritual realm, or the physical realm rather, that their knowledge, quote unquote, of the spiritual realm conflicted with the physical evidence and even the historical evidence. So if they felt it and imagined it and understood it, they felt they were gaining some knowledge of the spiritual realm, even if it conflicted with physical evidence around them. That's one way it played out. Another way would be self-flagellation. You got to beat that evil out of your physical body so that you can return to the spiritual. So again, there are many branches of idealism, but it was this separation from the physical and the spiritual realms. Was a strong component of this idealism. Now we also have realism. Realism has three main components to it. It's an understanding that God exists independently of humankind, that God is separate from and independent from humankind. The second one is that God can be known, that there is a way of knowing God. And then also that God may be spoken about truthfully, that truths of God may be discovered and understood. This is realism. Now, sometimes realism has a way of making God as distant, so I just kind of know about God and understand some truths of God, but maybe not quite as personally as some other views and understandings of God. So that would be realism. The next would be pantheism. Pantheism is this understanding that God is in everything. So there's no separation between the physical and the spiritual, but it's all kind of united as one. So much so that you could say that God is in that tree outside. God is in the wood in this bookshelf. God is in me. God is in you. God is in the floor. God is in the ceiling. God is in everything and permeates every aspect of the physical realm. That would be pantheism. Now, a different one, not to be confused with panentheism. Panentheism is this idea that God is separate from the world, but interacts very closely with the world, so much so that God is also changing and evolving over time with those interactions with humankind and with the physical world. So there's this kind of idealized understanding of what God can be, but this real understanding of what God is now as God is evolving and changing along with the world towards this more idealized version of God. So that would be panentheism. God is changing and in process. Okay. Then we have deism. This is an understanding of that there is a God that is transcendent and above the physical realm, outside of the realm of the physical, that often seen as God, a creator God. But deism also puts God so outside of the physical realm that God is very distant, in that God kind of created the world and set it into motion, and then it's up to us to kind of figure things out along the way, up to us to kind of gain that understanding of God, and we can maybe grow towards that understanding, but God is still quite distant from the physical realm. So let me look at a chart of various views of God to kind of help us with this. So we have over here, we have atheism. Atheism is an understanding that there is no God. There is no belief in God, that God does not exist, according to atheist views. Then we have monotheism, that there is one God. And then we have polytheism over here. There are multiple gods. And again, that number could be in the thousands, if not more. So atheism, no God, one God, multiple gods. Now, each of these do have their various branches. Let's hone in on the monotheism aspect first. Monotheism we can divide into the finite and the infinite. Finite God and an infinite God. So finite God, God has limits. Infinite God, God is beyond limitation. God is kind of eternal. God is beyond, bigger than that. Under finite, we can branch that into, we have panentheism and finite theism. So again, panentheism, we already described that it's an understanding that there is a God, that God interacts with, and again, this would be a monotheistic religion and understanding. One God, but that God is finite, that God is limited, God is outside the physical, but interacts with the physical in a way that God is always changing and evolving over time. So God has limits in this understanding. And God is changing and perhaps moving towards this idealized God that is bigger than the finite, but at the same time, it does put limits on God. So there's the finite, and then the infinite side of things. We have, again, pantheism, which God is in everything. God is in that tree, God is in you, God is in me, God is in the bookcase. God is in everything, no separation between the physical and the spiritual. But it is an understanding of God being infinite, that God is infinitely in everything, even throughout the universe, would be pantheism. And then we have deism, an understanding of this transcendent creator God outside of time, space, and the universe, but somewhat distant, that God created, set the world into motion, and then it's up to us to figure it out along the way. Now, theism would be an understanding of God, that God is infinite. Like deism, God is the creator God. God set the world into motion. But theism would see God as also very personal, that we can get to know God in this life. And many theistic religions also believe in an afterlife. We can get to know God in this life and in the life to come. Now, I'm going to stop the video here right now, and I'll start another one, and looking at our understanding of the Trinity in the Christian tradition. But this will give you an overview of some of the views of God.